Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, is the closed border actually having positive effects on Seattle's drug trade? But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
I used to think that Democrats were naive. Now I realize that the far left flank of this party, and we've known this for some time, I don't want to sound naive myself, are just plain evil. And I do not regret those words. I will not apologize for those words. I know we have lots of Democrats who listen to the show, which is why I specified the far left flank. They have lost their ever-loving minds. They have lost the plot completely. Last night at 2:17 a.m., 2:17 a.m., Washington Democrats in the Washington House of Representatives, in the Washington legislature, decided to gut parental rights. You guys went out there. You stood on street corners. You stood in front of grocery stores to get the signatures, to get the initiative on the ballot to protect parental rights. And Democrats knew it was unpopular to go against that. So as opposed to letting it go to the ballot where it may have taken down their agenda, what did they do? They passed it, knowing that later on they could mess with it, and that's exactly what they did last night. I would almost have more respect for them if they were honest about it. But remember that Lori Jenkins and Jamie Peterson, the heads of the Democrat Party here in Washington, the heads of the Democrats in the Washington State Legislature, said, well, it's all law anyway, knowing they were going to mess with it, so that way they could amend the law, so they can do whatever they want with your kids. Parents in private schools, I don't think you realize how bad this actually is. I know you're thinking to yourself, whoo, I'm safe. My kids are in private school. I'm going to tell you why. It's only a matter of time until these lunatics start making the stuff they're doing in public schools requirements for accreditation. Trust me, they do this already. As somebody who's been through the accreditation process, I could tell you how much garbage is in the accreditation process for private schools that is mandated by the state that doesn't need to be there. You think they're not going to do that with this so they can impose their agenda? What's the big lie they're telling about the parental rights? The big lie, they say, is it's to protect trans kids or gay kids or a kid who got pregnant from their parents because their parents may disagree with their life decisions. There are plenty of things that are already law in Washington that can handle any of that. Plenty of things. In fact, there were plenty of things before Senate Bill 5599. The one that made our state a sanctuary state for kids running away from home because of these issues. There are plenty of things kids in a bad household can do. What they're really trying to do right now is hide what they're up to, and I can prove it even though they haven't said so. You want me to illustrate it for you? Here we go. Anybody who's security-minded is going to want cameras in schools. All the Jewish schools my kids go to have cameras in them. Do you know why you want cameras in the schools? Number one, we're a Jewish school, and people swastika our buildings a lot. That's number one. Number two, psychopaths try to get into the building. So for safety reasons, you want that. So let's translate that over the public schools. You want that in case of a school shooter. God forbid. You want that in case of somebody vandalizing the building. But in addition to that, it protects the students and it protects the teachers. Why? If a student makes a claim that is false against a teacher, the teacher has video evidence. If a teacher makes a claim against a student that is false, there's video evidence of that. You should want the cameras in the classroom for everybody's protection. The same people who want cameras on every single police officers who will make the same arguments I just did will refuse to have them in the schools. Look, I don't care about body cameras. I'm fine with body cameras on cops. I really, really am. How many of the people on the left want the cameras in the classrooms? You know why they don't want the cameras in the classrooms? Because then every single thing that every single teacher teaches is open for public disclosure. I'm sure it'll be expensive, but you know what? Given how much money they're wasting on DEI, I think this is a better investment. Last night, Republicans fought valiantly, but at the end of the day, they just don't have the votes, and that's because of the votes here in Washington. We don't have the votes. So the Democrats ran this through anyway. I saw a terrible headline, which was trying to spin this as a good thing. This from Cairo 7. Parents in Washington just scored a big win in their right to know what's happening with their kids at school. After more than 6 hours of debate, the Washington State House passed House Bill 1296 at 2:15 a.m. Along party lines, all Democrats voted in favor, and all Republicans opposed it. 5 members were excused from voting. Wait a second. There is nothing good in this bill. What are you excited about? Despite the changes, opponents are still very unhappy about the premise of the bill. Yes, because it guts parental rights. A total of 131 amendments were proposed, including a striking amendment, a complete rewrite of the bill. The approved rewrite clarifies a critical change. Schools must now notify parents immediately if something serious happens to their child, eliminating the previous 48-hour window. Wow, we got one win out of this thing. One win. Would you like to know the amendments they voted down? They think that 9-year-olds should be able to excuse themselves from campus. They don't want parents getting notified if their child doesn't appear at school or leaves campus. They are still letting boys shower with girls and boys in girls' bathrooms. They shut down an amendment that would disallow Rakedoll and OSPI to punish schools for noncompliance with state policies that violate federal law, which means Rakedoll can keep doing his DEI stuff until the feds come for the funding for your kid's school. They shot down an amendment where parents must be notified if a medical incident happened to their child at school. They shot down one where parents must be notified when a medical procedure happens that requires insurance. By the way, you know how hard it was for me to get an aspirin when I went to high school? Now you can get a medical procedure at school? Oh, right, I forgot. We have health clinics in the schools, in Seattle Public Schools now. They shot down an amendment where parents must be notified if their child is assaulted off school campus and the school finds out about it. So what that means is, let's say there's a fight in the street next to the school. They don't have to tell you about it. Parents must be notified if their child is sexually assaulted by a school employee off campus. So wait a minute. Now Cairo 7 is bragging, oh, great, look, you're going to find out if there's a problem. No, you're not. And we had this exact situation just weeks ago in the Seattle public school system where a girl went missing and she was found with a teacher who had just had sex with her in a restaurant bathroom. How insane is that? You want more? You want more? Here we go. We got more. They shut down an amendment that would allow parents to request their child's medical records. They shut down an amendment that would allow parents to review graphic material before instruction, which means all that hypersexualized stuff, it's all back in. This is basically gutting the parental Bill of Rights that you all fought so hard for. They shot down an amendment which would allow suspensions of repeat disruptive students. They shot down an amendment that would remove the emergency clause to allow a referendum process because they're saying, oh, it's an emergency. This is happening right now. No, it's not. They didn't want it to go back to the voters either. So now we got to do this all over again. That means Let's Go Washington has to bring out the Parental Rights Initiative all over again if Bob Ferguson signs it. Now, some of you may be thinking to yourselves, will Bob Ferguson sign it? If you got a coin, we can flip it, but I'll tell you, I think he's going to sign it. And the reason I think he's going to sign it is because he has pissed off the Democrats a lot by trying to be bipartisan. But a lot of that stuff is fiscal policy. So what I think it is that regarding the far left ideas that they swear to, like this insanity, I think they're going to say, nope, you better do this because if you don't do this, you're against us and we're against you and we're going to make your life a living hell. I bet you Bob Ferguson signs this. So we're going to have to do this all over again. That means standing in front of grocery stores. That means giving up your Saturdays and Sundays. That means collecting signatures all over again. Because the Democrats think they know what's better for your kids more than you. They know that during COVID, their little game was exposed. What was their little game? They could say whatever they want for 7 hours a day to your kids, and you would have no idea what they were saying. Does the kid get good grades? Oh, good, he's going to college. That's about all you cared about. And then what happened? You dummy heads gave away the game. You sent all these kids home because of COVID. And as soon as you did that, mom's sitting there working during the day, dad's sitting there working during the day, kids sitting there working, and the one time the kid doesn't have the headphones on, what happens all of a sudden? You start hearing what they're learning in class. And you said, what the hell? No way. No way. What does Let's Go Washington say? Because they're the ones who are going to have to do the heavy lifting on this, and we're all going to have to help them, every single one of us. In fact, you know what we need to do? I'm putting a challenge out there to everybody. Last time, what did we get? 600,000 signatures for this initiative, I think it was, something like that. I want to get 1.2 million signatures for this initiative. That's how many signatures we got collectively on all the initiatives, 1.2, 1.3 million signatures. It's got to be damning. It's got to be overwhelming. It has to be a brutal show of force. That's what it has to be. To say, no, we're not putting up with your nonsense anymore. You came at us with this? We're throwing it right back in your face. Here's what Let's Go Washington said in response to this today. Parents' rights supporters watched in horror as Democrats passed House Bill 1296. Yeah, that's a little different from Cairo's headline, don't you think? Off the House floor in the dead of night to strip away more protections for parents and kids. Monica Stonier, Democrat of Vancouver, an educator in Southwest Washington, is the primary proponent of the state keeping secrets from parents. She and legislatures were presented with a slate of amendments that would have made the bill more reasonable, including provisions to alert parents when an extensive procedure is being considered for their child or a mandatory alert for parents if their child does not go to school. By the way, sidebar for a second. When my kid doesn't show up at school, I always get notification. I don't want to make it sound like they're cutting. Most of the time, it's we forgot to tell them they were sick, or we forgot to tell them we were going out of town. That's usually on us. I get notified every single time. Every common sense amendment was met with almost total opposition from Democrats and full support from the Republican caucus. Let's Go Washington introduced an initiative to repeal ESSB 5181, but now the legislature seems to be putting all their chips on H-Bill 1296, which strips parents' rights and denies them access to information about their children. Let's Go Washington's initiative will reestablish protections for students in schools, reaffirm that parents are the primary stakeholders in medical, academic, personal decisions for their children. Brian Haywood, founder of Let's Go Washington, said it's inconceivable that keeping secrets from parents about their children is even a debate, but that's why Democrats move in the dead of night. This legislature said in no uncertain terms that they agree with Senator Peterson. Parents have no rights. Let's play this out a little bit. Will parents be financially responsible for paying for the procedures to their children that they don't know about? Will the state be held liable when children decide they no longer want to transition? Common sense has left the building. This legislature is an embarrassment to our state. 100% correct. I could not have said it better myself. And you need to think about something else here. The Democrats are self-sabotaging. So let's say we go with their numbers for a second, and 1% of the kid population is trans, even though we know it's a lot lower than that. But let's go with their numbers for the sake of argument. So you're upending the entire system for 1%. That's your argument. That's what I'm going with here. How many kids are you going to lose from the system? How many more kids are going to transfer out when parents realize they have no rights at all anymore? How many thousands, tens of thousands more kids do you want to leave the system? And that's exactly what's going to happen. Because you know what? You guys passed this thing at 2 a.m. So a lot of people don't know about it yet. And a lot of people don't see Cairo 7 News. And I wish more people listen to this show who disagree with us and such. But you know what? A lot of people don't know about this yet. You know when they will know about it? The day where they find out, if they even go to a parent-teacher conference. Well, Miss Smith, your son hasn't been here in 3 weeks. What do you mean he hasn't been here in 3 weeks? Why didn't you tell me? Oh, I'm sorry, we're not allowed to tell you. Wait, what? You're not allowed to tell me? Well, Miss Smith, Your son now identifies as sunshine rainbows, and we sent him out to that gender transitioning thing. He hasn't been growing his hair out because he thinks it's cool and he wants to join a rock band. He's been growing his hair out because he thinks he's a girl. Wait, you did what? Oh, yeah, and we prescribed him drugs. Miss Smith, your daughter had an abortion, right? That's what it is. Why didn't you tell me that? Well, we just don't have to. These are very real things that could happen. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, I'm screwing all that up. They'd never say Miss Smith. You know why? Because they would never tell her. It would be the kid coming home and say, Mom, I now identify as Sunshine Rainbow Bright. It would be the kid coming home and said, Mom, I'm not feeling so good. Well, what's wrong with you? Well, I had an abortion today. Where were you all day, son? Well, I was ditching school. How come the school didn't tell me? These are very real things that are about to happen. And the public school system is about to lose a ton more kids. A ton more kids. Because you see what these Democrat officials are trying to do to your kids. They want them as their little bots. They want them to be reliant on the state. They want them to be their stormtroopers for social justice. They want them to be their voting bloc. Maybe if you guys decide to have your own kids, you'd keep your hands off of ours. Jamie Peterson was very clear about it when he gave away the game earlier this year. Said parents have no rights. And he was talking about kids who are 13 years old. And my bar mitzvah, I've looked at the pictures. I'm a little turd. I'll tell you that right there. I'm a little nothing burger. You think I can make my own decisions? One of my kids comes to me the other day. He says, can I have my own credit card? I said, no. And they said, why not? I said, I don't want you screwing up your credit when you're a teenager. Absolutely not. I said, you could have one that goes to my account, and I see every single transaction you make, and I'm the one paying the bills for it right now because I don't want you screwing up your credit score. Absolutely not. Kids do dumb things. 13-year-old Ari Hoffman, not the brightest tool in the box. Do you know why? Because I was 13 years old. But imagine yourself at 13 years old. And now you're able to make these life-altering decisions, whether they're about gender or anything else. That's the way the Democrats want it. So if there's a problem, you're reliant on them. For the surgeries for transing that last the rest of your life, you're reliant on them. For anything else these kids need, oh, you ran away from home? Guess who you're reliant on for housing? You're reliant on them for the rest of your lives. They want to take your kids away from you. And I challenge you to prove me wrong. What I want to hear from right now is I want to hear from public school parents. I want to hear from public school parents who listen to the show. And I want to know if you're going to keep your kids in the school if this sticks around and the initiative is unsuccessful. I really do. And I want to know what's stopping you from yanking your kids out. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Lots more to discuss, my friends, as the show continues. When we come back, is the closed border affecting Seattle's drug trade? Looks like it might actually be having the impact we all wanted it to have. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. My friends, people could talk a big game in Washington, D.C. about the border. And we're very excited when they say the border's closed. But the question is, are we seeing any effects of it on the street itself? Are we seeing any effects to the drug trade? Joining me now in studio from the organization We Heart Seattle, which is one of the best organizations, if not the only organization, that I trust to do homeless outreach around here. Andrea Suarez, thanks for being with us today.
Hello, everybody.
So good to have you here. So tell us what you're seeing on the streets with regards to drugs. You and I were discussing this yesterday, and you were telling me that this may have affected parts of the fentanyl trade. What are you seeing?
It has. We have heard firsthand from kingpins and dealers who said, I'm hanging on my hat up when Trump is elected. They knew change was coming and asked for resources. I mean, that's pretty incredible when dealers are asking We Heart Seattle for resources, detox and housing. So that was the first indication that change was in the air.
So are these the smaller time guys? Because normally a drug deal, like, for example, when pot became legalized in Washington, these guys didn't just go start working for Uber or something else or go get jobs in the tech world. They just found something else to sell, whether it was meth or fentanyl or whatever else it was. So you're saying that they're coming to you. Are they the low-level guys? Who are we talking about?
Yeah, definitely lower on the food chain. We are talking there are thousands of dealers all over the city of Seattle. It's unbelievable how many folks are out there on our street corners slinging different drugs, but it is harder to sell. Law enforcement's up. That said, it does ebb and flow. It depends on the batch. Sometimes drugs aren't that good. You can't get well on them, or they don't get you high enough. And this is just literally, I left a conversation with a drug user before I came here to kind of get the hot off the press. And they're like, it really ebbs and flows depending on the batch. What's in the precursor? Right now, the fentanyl tastes like boat glue, for example. Ew. Like, that's what the precursors are. It's poison, and it gives you a different high. Sometimes the drugs are really good. Sometimes they're more expensive. Sometimes they're cheap. Black tar is starting to make a comeback. We know that the tariffs are making an impact in that the clandestine labs are in a whack-a-mole situation in Sinaloa. There was a piece that came out the other day about the labs that are gone. So it is making a difference, but it's still, in my opinion, what I'm seeing is whack-a-mole. Mm-hmm. It's not over. It's always going to be something that we're going to manage, but it is changing and shifting, and people are adjusting to where they sell, what they're selling, and for how much.
I just want to take a pause for a second here on the drug topic and say, I remember meeting you way back when, okay, and maybe I have to eat a little crow on this, right? I remember meeting you way back when, and you were a very nice lady who said you wanted to clean up your neighborhood. Now you run, in my opinion, one of the most successful combating homeless organizations, outreach organizations, and you've become an expert on the drug trade. And I remember saying at the time, I don't know if this lady's going to last. I mean, when she has to start dealing with this on a daily basis, but this is what you do on a daily basis. Could you ever, talking to yourself 6 years ago, have imagined that this is what your life would be?
It's fascinating to look back, never realizing I would be in the belly of the beast of the headline crisis, being the drug epidemic, the homeless crisis, and the environmental decimation, most importantly, the public safety crisis. Drug-motivated crimes are a result of drug addiction. Until outreach start getting out there on the ground and intervening with the drug users to accept detox, we're never going to get ahead of this. And why my call to action to the providers are get on the ground and help people access resources. We're not even asking them if they want to get off drugs now. So that's just the call to action to the providers. I made a recent X post I thought was incredible. I was reflecting with my team going, do you guys realize in the last 24 hours, we've been called by 7 different agencies in total worth $2.4 billion, and little old We Heart Seattle with 3 people and $650,000 in our budget are being called upon by the homeless industrial complex to find housing, to bus ticket people home, to find detox beds. They are paralyzed by bureaucracy.
So then my question is, why do we have them and why don't we just fund you? I think things would be working out a whole lot better that way.
Supply of services creates demand, and we just keep pumping money into this thing. And how I got here 6 years ago is because the truth lies beneath the trash I have picked up, and it's empirical data. It's the scientific method of learning by doing. This is not academic. I didn't read it. I didn't study it. I didn't listen to a bunch of podcasts. I've never talked to a doctor in my life. I've talked to addicts. I've talked to homeless. None of them have told me they're there because of high rent. I'll tell you that.
So let's talk about what's going on in Georgetown and Sodo and those areas, right? Just like you talked about the giant game of whack-a-mole, and this hit me personally yesterday where I'm dealing with this fun, like I do on a regular basis. I feel like a magnet, like it just finds me. Why is it always me? Like trouble always seems to know where I am. But the mayor says, oh, things are better in downtown. And I'm not going to disagree with him and say things aren't better in downtown. They are slightly better in downtown, but that's just because things have been exported everywhere else. And while people may be saying things are better in King County, they've been exported to other nearby counties, and I'm not seeing it actually be better.
Well, drug overdose deaths in Washington are still up. January, February results came in, so we have that to contend with. We see it firsthand and are willing to, because we have untied tongues, to say it is whack-a-mole. And we still have a plethora of enabling agencies, SPU pumping out dilapidated RVs that should otherwise be illegal on our streets, various forms of harm reduction, perpetuating human suffering in this revolving door of housing first, where people are getting kicked out, like all of it. And so we are seeing more people take residency in our green belts and woods. We were there this afternoon in the East Duwamish Trail, picking up trash. Cabins are being built. Tents are being, everywhere there. And it is really we still really do live in a whack-a-mole world.
In the last few minutes we have with Andrea Suarez from We Heart Seattle, where if you actually want to see a difference in Seattle, you should support We Heart Seattle. Andrea, if I gave you $100 million right now, which I don't have, but if I gave you $100 million and said, I am tasking you with solving the crisis on our streets, I'm not going to call it a homeless crisis. We both know why. Right. But if I said, I need you to solve what's going on our streets, give me the top 4 or 5 steps you would take to do that.
Well, we would make it hard to get high and start to reformulate where we spend money in terms of harm reduction, foils, pipes, those types of services. More people on the ground, first and foremost, more boots on the ground, folks who've been there. Yes, lived experience matters, having been in the club, been to jail, been addicted, but people who are not just in recovery, but have been in recovery for years, sober. And more boots on the ground. We tend to wonder, where is everybody? And having people intervene and reach a drug user where they're at and broker resources is a missing link. We need more people on the ground, not in the towers. More recovery homes, so clean and sober homes versus only low barrier. So we would put money towards halfway houses, community living, tiny house villages, sure, but let's give those villages a chance by putting people in there that have come right out of jail, clean and sober, or who are detoxing. But I love this line. If money was the solution, we would have already saved the problem. So $100 million actually scares me. I don't want $100 million. I just want more people on the ground to staff outreach and to make recovery the path out. I think we need to stigmatize drug use. It's poisonous and lethal, harming our loved ones and ruining cities. So make it hard to get high and easier to get clean, and make recovery cool. Make that, there's a sober curious movement going on right now amongst alcoholics and drinking, and there's non-alcoholic beverages on every menu out there. Also, fentanyl in itself, I think, will be in and itself the reason that caused all these deaths, but also the reason why it stops. I haven't seen somebody that says, oh man, I just started using fentanyl today for the first time. We're not picking up first-time users. Kids, youth were doing a good job educating people that this will kill you. This is a lethal, illicit poison. Don't use it. Don't do drugs. The messaging, marketing. I would spend money on marketing. Do not do drugs. Not, drug use is normal. That's kind of where we're at. Let's just keep normalizing it. Who are we to say that drug users aren't people too? They are. But funding the perpetuating and suspending their human suffering by giving them more drugs, more methadone, more Suboxone forever in perpetuity is inhumane. So just combating some of those things.
And that's why we support you, because you have that mindset where you go, okay, it's not a money thing, it's an actual solutions thing.
Is that how you have a conversation? Words out of our mouths matter to a drug addict. I mean, the shock I see on people's faces when we draw our phone and say, we're going to get you a bed today, they're shocked. Sarah Nelson passed a $300,000 fund for us to be able to access 4 providers that aren't covered by state insurance. And we graduated a man on Monday from that program wrote him $1,000 check, and he moved into a home in Kirkland, Washington, where a community house awaited him with capacity. That's pretty cheap, isn't it? Now he's going to get a job and start to be self-sufficient. That's the working model. Give people a chance again.
And see, this is why We Heart Seattle is making a difference. Andrea Suarez, thank you so much for being with us today. Head on over to their website, We Heart Seattle. Check it out so that way you can give them a donation and help them get people off the streets. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I don't understand what the Democrats are doing right now. I really don't get it. The stock market isn't doing well. The economy is going to take time to turn around. The tariffs are making everybody crazy. Right now, that is Donald Trump's weak point. And the Democrats, what are they doing? Let's go support the terrorists. But they got a new one they're doing today. You ready for this one? Let's shut down the government. So hang on a second. Just because you hate Donald Trump, just because you hate Republicans, you want to shut down the government. Now, look, as a quasi-conservative, libertarian, whatever that mess is that we think we are these days, I shut the government down. I'm like Ron Swanson. I got a binder of ideas. Doge is doing that for us. Let's shut the whole thing down. Let's do it. But there's a problem, as Republicans have learned in the past. When you shut down the government, whoever shuts down the government gets blamed for it and doesn't help you in the polls. So right now, if I was a Democratic consultant, I would say the Democrats, guys, it's just a continuing resolution that the Republicans have passed in the House that says fund the government at its current levels until September. Vote yes. Vote for this. And then when the economy starts tanking more, or inflation isn't going down, or costs are going up, or whatever the case may be, you attack him the entire time. Instead, what are the Democrats doing? We want to shut down the government. Cutting government waste is bad. We want to shut down the government. Guys, you're doing the unpopular thing. Even CNN showed how the majority of Americans are in favor of what Doge is doing, yet that hasn't stopped Democrats from criticizing it. And yet, I remember not too long ago when they all used to be in favor of cutting costs. Don't believe me? Here's a montage for you.
Yes, you do have to cut some programs. I think there's waste out there. I think there are programs that can and should be cut.
Again, we all agree we have to get rid of waste, fraud, abuse, duplication, obsolescence, and the rest. The GAO has given us a blueprint for that, and we subscribe to that. We all agree that we must reduce the deficit.
There's tremendous waste in government, and I think any Democrat who ignores the lessons, the lessons of those who voted, the lessons of the last election, makes a mistake. The people did want government to cut out the waste and to shrink.
Okay, so first of all, why haven't you people done it this entire time? Let's start there. But second of all, if this is what they want, and you all acknowledge that's what they want, you're fighting a losing battle. Plus, you want to shut down the government? I remember it wasn't too long ago that you guys were railing against people who wanted to shut down the government. Thank God we have our friends like Mazemore over on Twitter who finds all the clips for us so we don't have to.
Republicans are marching America to a painful government shutdown. But we need traditional Republicans to break with MAGA extremists so we can keep the government open.
Republican shutdown will cost 6,306 of her constituents their paychecks.
Put the bill on the floor for an up or down vote so we can end this MAGA Republican nightmare. And if you don't, you own this government shutdown.
And we could put the threat of a shutdown behind us. Our agreement would keep the government open, provide emergency aid for communities battered by hurricanes and other natural disasters.
It's about the harm that House Republicans will do to the American people if the government shuts down.
One Democrat said to me they feel like they have a mandate from their constituents to shut down the government.
Yes, there are some raising the possibility of shutting down the government in March.
We will use whatever power we have, and fundamentally, we're not going to vote for something that undermines the American people.
To withhold votes, do Democrats have the stomach?
I certainly hope so. I know that I'm not going to vote for their proposal for sure.
Are you prepared to shut down the government, to join Democratic colleagues who want to stand in the way of keeping the government open?
Well, there are simply trying to... So yes, look, if we have to take steps.
14 days from now, government shutdown is looming.
If we don't believe that we have a willing partner on the other side, then we need to stay united and not bail out President Trump.
And yet, at the same time, in order for a lot of voters to fully understand what Elon Musk and Donald Trump are doing, people are unfortunately going to have to feel some of that. And the only way that that happens is if the shutdown happens.
So the other thing the Democrats need to know is that as soon as they start shutting down the government and saying, well, you shouldn't shut down the government, all those clips are going to be on repeat on every single news media outlet. John Fetterman's no fool, by the way. John Fetterman says he's voting for the continuing resolution to keep the government open because he gets it. Yes, the guy with brain damage from a stroke gets it more than Chuck Schumer and all the other Democrats. If you shut down the government, you own it. And you're going to own it in the polls. And you're blowing your opportunity to criticize Donald Trump. And this may be one of the few you get. You only get one shot at Donald Trump, and then he turns his head. I'm saying you guys right now are blowing your chance, and I hope you keep doing it. I hope you keep doing it because you suck at this. Man, they are so frazzled by the election, they don't know what to do with themselves. You know who else doesn't know what to do with themselves? Walt Disney Studios. They are rolling back the high energy and all the pomp and circumstance for their Snow White premiere. Do they think it's going to be a bomb? We'll get into it when we get back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. The new live-action version of Snow White has been plagued with problems, most of them because of the lead, Rachel Zegler. She's the source of most of these problems. Now, I will say this movie was kind of cursed from the beginning. Let's give it its day in court, shall we? So, number one, people say, why are you remaking a classic? You're out of ideas. Most of the remakes suck. I enjoyed the Beauty and the Beast one. I actually legit enjoyed that one, but the rest of them have been terrible. Really terrible. So why are you doing this again? And you're messing with a classic, and people expect it to look a certain way. If you're going to mess with a classic, then show it to me the same way or reimagine it in a fun way. Instead, Disney goes, let's reimagine it where we're going to piss everybody off. So what do you know Snow White for? The 7 dwarves. And then these set pictures come out, and they ain't dwarves. And then forget all the woke garbage that's in the rest of this movie, because sometimes we jump the gun on that and assume it's going to be a certain way, and we haven't seen it yet. But when it's Snow White and the 7 dwarves, and you've got 7 guys walking behind Snow White that are not wearing the green CGI stuff, that are bigger than I am, you go, what are you doing? It's Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. We like the dopey, sleepy doc. We like that stupid. Now, the trailer came out, and apparently a whole bunch of reshoots had to be done to this movie because of the backlash from that one set picture. So now you got CG dwarves who look like the dwarves we know. It looks more like that. And you know what? I'm going to tell you something about acting with the CG stuff. You got to look in the direction the character's supposed to be. So you get tinier people to play the dwarves in the CG stuff if you're going to do that, not the giant guys. So no, they were not planning. That was what it was going to be. They were not planning on photoshopping those guys out. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is now you've got Rachel Zegler, who during Disney's own expos is saying the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird. So we didn't do that this time. Okay, a little bit there. But then she made more comments. She talks about blank Donald Trump. And then she says, may Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace. Then she starts backing Palestinian terrorists. And she's in the movie with Gal Gadot, who served in the Israeli army, is a Jew, and is an outspoken, proud Israeli. Was that a dig at your co-star? Okay, one's Wonder Woman, and one most people haven't heard of. We're going to take Wonder Woman's side in this whole mess. So Disney might know it has a turd on its hands. And what is it doing? It is rolling back the pomp and circumstance and all the flash and pizzazz of the premiere in Los Angeles. Now, you know what this kind of reminds me of? The Flash. When you had all those issues with the Flash, with the lead actor who's going to be the Flash, and you might have had a perfectly good movie, but they're saying, okay, well, do we put our chips down on this? And we were getting all those reports, the reports saying, well, it's actually good, guys, it's actually good. And then we got the reports that are saying, well, if he goes on an apology tour, it's going to be good. This is how you get more interested, and I actually think they leaked this story. I think they leaked this story to Variety because then people go, wait, let's talk about this movie because we didn't even remember it was coming out. Most people probably think it came out already.
Yeah, you know, I feel very similar, and I think they kind of got me because that's how they got me to watch that Flash movie. Is like I was there for the train wreck, and I kind of want to watch this to see how much of a disaster it actually is. Prior to this conversation, I was thinking it's like much like that live-action Pinocchio remake that nobody knows exists. You just quietly put it on the plus.
Yes.
And they didn't, so I don't know if they're just trying to recoup production costs or if they think this thing actually has a shot or if they're trying to appeal to knuckleheads like me who are probably going to go just for the chaos.
Well, don't forget how much money this movie probably cost. I don't think we have the figures on it. I went looking for it, but here's the problem. They had to shoot it twice. They had to reshoot it so many times, they might as well have made a second version of this movie. So they got to recoup costs somehow, or just take the loss and do what they did to that Batwoman movie or Batgirl movie or whatever it was. Just flush it down the Warner Brothers toilet, never to be seen again. And by the way, now looking back on it, that's how you knew The Flash was going to suck. because they got rid of that. Not even saying, oh, people may have interest in this because of Michael Keaton or whatever. They lied to us. And I will not be fooled again. Will not
Fool
be.
me one time, shame on you. Fool me, fool won't get fooled again.
There you go. Exactly. Mike, the poet. Exactly right there. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. When we come back, a tragic story where apparently Governor Jay Inslee released a brutal murderer on his last day in office, and nobody knew about it. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, neighbors are furious in a Washington neighborhood after they discover a hotel is going to be given to the homeless. But before we get to any of that, there is a story that we have right now that the media has not reported on at all regarding the latest developments. Let me fill you in on what's going on today. When Governor Jay Inslee left office on his last day in office, he allowed a brutal murderer to be released. Absolutely mind-blowing. He just let this guy out. What did he do? He rescinded an order he had originally signed, which was keeping this guy in jail, even though a parole board wanted to let him out. And what's crazy is this is a story that's been going on since the 1980s. When you hear the names of the people involved, you're going to remember them, because we've been talking about them for years. We were fighting the fight in 2022 to keep Timothy Pauly behind bars because he killed 3 people. And Jay Inslee set the table for this guy to be released on his last day in office. Joining me now on the Warrior Injury Law Studio line is one of the family members of one of the victims of Timothy Pauly, and that's Kelly Tarp, who's been with us before. And Kelly, I am so sorry you and your family are going through this again.
Hi, Ari. It's good to be on your show again. I wish it was under different circumstances, but yeah, we are back at it again.
So let's back up and go step by step what happened here. So the last time we spoke to you was in 2022. The Intermediate Sentencing Review Board was saying, okay, we want to let this guy out of prison, even though you guys know he's a master manipulator. We know he's a master manipulator. We know he shows no remorse, but they want to let him out of jail. We did a massive pressure campaign, and Governor Jay Inslee, I even wrote a nice letter to Governor Jay Inslee. I even wrote a nice letter, and I never do that. You should know that, by the way, Kelly. Yeah. And what happened was the pressure campaign worked, and Jay Inslee stopped the parole. But apparently what he did was he rescinded his own order his last day in office?
That's what we were notified on. So the reason that it was not in the media and news hasn't picked up on this is, in my opinion, Governor Inslee did the most cowardly act he could possibly do. I'm going to try not to cry. On his last day in office, he rescinded that decision. Unbeknownst to anybody in our family, apparently Pauly and his attorney have been corresponding with Inslee. We're not sure what was in those correspondence, what Pauly said, but whatever it was, Governor Inslee decided that it was enough to rescind his original order from 2022 and is allowing him to be released. He sent that order back to the board on January 14th. We were notified on January 15th, the day before we laid our mom to rest. And needless to say, we've been trying to cope with the overwhelming feeling that, once again, we don't have justice. There's no transparency within this system. We're asking for documents, and ISRB is refusing to give it to us, telling us we need to go and request public disclosures with DOC. DOC is saying wait your 90 days and request it formally, and we might get it to you.
So let me just pause for a second here. I just want to clarify some things for some people. So your mother was one of the survivors of that massacre, wasn't she? And you just laid her to rest, and you found out the next day that this had happened?
Correct. So in 1980, our father, Robert, my mom, Linda, and Sherry were all at the tavern after closing, helping get things situated and cleaned up. When Pauly left that night, after he executed our father point blank, Again, this was not a robbery that had gone wrong. Holly is, in my opinion, unfit, no matter how many books he reads or what he claims he's done to rehabilitate himself. Anybody who can do what he did to two men who were tied up and bound in a cooler who posed no threat does not deserve to walk out. Our mom survived. Luckily, she was forced to strip naked and crawl to the restroom, and she was tied and strangled and cut and assaulted. It was a miracle that she survived, but she survived and she fought, and she's continued to fight all these years to protect us, her kids, so we wouldn't have to know what happened that night and to make sure that there was justice for our dad. She lost that fight in December, and we put her to rest. But the day before we were putting her to rest, we received a call from the board. Again, Governor Inslee has our contact information. We've met with him. He knows our family. He knows our phone numbers. He has our emails. He did not have even the most decency, common courtesy to call us to say what he was doing or what he was considering, and neither did the board. We were blindsided.
So how did you guys find out about this? If they weren't informing you or anything, how were you told?
We received the notice that Governor Inslee had sent revoking his decision and releasing him, and told the board they had, within certain days, they had to get him out and figure out a plan. The board called us and sent an email.
So then, were there any restrictions put in place? He can't be around your family members. These are places he can't go. These are places he's not going to be allowed. Or was it just, sure, go, bye, gone?
When the original decision in 22 was being discussed that he was going to be paroled, which devastated us again because it would have been on what would have been our father's birthday, but we were able to get that stopped. But before that, the board met with us. We had conversations with the board. We had conversations in terms of where we live, what our restrictions, what we felt we needed to do to protect ourselves. We felt at least somewhat part of a process, and that they were listening to us, as well as going to the public with your help, as well as everybody else, writing letters and corresponding to the board, as well as to Inslee, to turn this over. This time we have had none. We've done everything we can, but we're hearing it after the fact, and then having to go back to the person that we have who's supposed to be the victim liaison and telling her this doesn't work, he can't go to these areas. But bottom line, they're restricting him from a couple areas, but he's still going to be in our backyard.
So he's going to be in your neighborhood. They're letting him loose the day after your mother gets buried, who was one of the survivors of this massacre, and they're just letting this guy loose. This is absolutely insane. We're talking with Kelly Tarp, whose father was killed by Timothy Pauly, who's about to be released from jail. Now, he's not out yet, right? He's still in jail. Is there anything we can do to stop it? Would a pressure campaign on, say, Bob Ferguson or the Intermediate Sentencing Board, a.k.a. the Parole Board, do anything right now?
I tell you, Ari, if there was any way to get this overturned, we would have been doing it. We were told that because it was a decision that Governor Inslee did revoking his original decision from 2022, that it put back in motion that original parole, and there's nothing that we can do.
I refuse to accept that. I refuse to accept that because Bob Ferguson's a new governor and this is happening on his watch. I think that's him ducking responsibility. We're saying, I don't want Inslee's mess. I think we should put the pressure on his office.
I would love to put the pressure on his office. We still have 2 more weeks before he's released. And I can tell you right now, in our view, he's not rehabilitated. We've been and have sat in on so many of his hearings and have read the psychological reports and his evaluations. The only thing that he is and that he's mastered over these years is how to manipulate the system, excuse me, and put a checkbox in what they tell him he has to do. But he's not remorseful or sorry.
So here's something else that just occurred to me. why wouldn't his accomplice, the other guy who was helping Timothy Pauly in the bar who killed all those people, why wouldn't he say the exact same thing? You let him out, now let me out. I'm rehabilitated too. And what's to stop that from happening?
Trust me, Ari, it's one of our biggest fears because Pauly's a coward and he refused to testify during Smith's trial. Our mom had to do it to ensure that Smith was sentenced. Smith received a longer sentence, but he's also been wanting to get out, and he's said exactly what you have just stated.
That's horrifying.
And we have informed the board of this, that you've got two offenders. I'm not going to say offenders. You have two mass murderers who are capable of doing what they did that night, that are pointing the finger at each other and not taking responsibility. It is insane to us that this is even going on again. And our fear is that Smith is going to get wind of this and try to do the same thing again.
I'll tell you what we're going to do, Kelly, because I got to say, this is ridiculous that we're dealing with this again. We thought we had won in 2022, helped your family get a little bit of peace, a little bit of justice, as much as you can get after the horrors that happened to your father. Here's the thing that I think we should do. I think we should put the pressure on Bob Ferguson's office, and I think everybody should put the pressure on Bob Ferguson's office and make him answer us. Make him answer why he won't stop this, because I'm pretty sure he has the ability to do so, but I'm not a lawyer. I'm going to talk to a few people. I want to find out if we can stop this. Is that okay with you that we try?
I would love that. Like I said, our family deserves justice. My mom was reassured by the prosecuting attorney's office that these two men would never get out. They would never walk out and be free for what they did. She was promised that, and there is a sentence, and it is life. Timothy Pauly has been a master manipulator throughout this entire process and has manipulated the system and taken advantage of it there's been no end in terms of what he's done. We thought we finally had justice when the board went back in 2015, 2016, and they reevaluated his sentence and what they did and corrected their errors. The only thing is this board, they're not lawyers, so they didn't know how to write it so it would stand up in court. So, again, we continue to have the rug pulled out from underneath us. And this isn't just our family. This is justice for everybody out there. To have somebody murder your father and leave your mom for dead, the way that this was committed, they don't deserve to walk free. And 44 years is not enough. That's not a life sentence. Our dad deserves more, and so does Robert and Linda and Sherry and our mom.
And there were supposed to be multiple life sentences. So it's not just one, it's multiple life sentences. Correct. And now they're letting this guy out. And with regards to the Sentencing Review Board, when I found out about this from one of your relatives last night, I immediately reached out to them. It's been almost 24 hours since I reached out to them, and they haven't even had the courage to get back to me with an official statement. And the easiest statement they could say is, hey, you know, this decision was made a few years ago. We can't stop it, whatever. They could say, they can't even have the courtesy to get back to me with that kind of statement. So I can only imagine the kind of garbage you're hearing from these guys. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do, Kelly. This is what we're going to do. We're going to put the pressure on the governor's office. I don't know if it's going to work at all. I really don't know if it's going to work. I don't want to make you promises I can't keep. But we're going to put the pressure on him because I at least want him to answer why he won't even try to do something about this.
I'm all for that. I'm all for your audience to be aware of what's going on, because although reaching out to the governor, this is not political. This is our lives. Our lives were shattered and destroyed that night. And the prosecuting attorney's office, they did everything they were supposed to. Dave Reichert and all the other detectives that night did what they were supposed to. He is supposed to remain in prison for life. He is not to get out. He got leniency because he pled guilty, but he never testified. He didn't help to make sure Smith didn't get released and that he would serve his sentence. Okay. Pauly is not remorseful. He's not rehabilitated. All your audience needs to do is look back and look at the evidence. And if Bob Ferguson can do the same and overturn this, our family would have justice. And that's what this is about. It's justice.
I agree. I completely agree. And let's see if he even has the power to do it. Let's see if he does have the power to do it, if we can get him to do the right thing, because this is awful. Kelly, I'm going to be in touch after the show tonight. I'm going to let you know what our progress is, and I'll stay in touch with you until we get a decision on this, okay?
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the time, Ari.
I'm so
Bringing
sorry
this
for
out
your
to
loss.
the public.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Kelly. We got more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, everybody out there, coming up at 5:45 is our good news segment. Good news giveaway, good news headlines. Your chance to win a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. And, of course, Cyndi Lauper tickets. Put a smile on your day, even if it's been a heavy day, my friends. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from our friend Transit Joe. Transit Joe, what's up, man? I hear you got breaking news for us.
The University of Washington has voted to not continue its divestment against Israel campaign in an executive session that was, and then they were supposed to vote on consent today, but they're getting jamming, a lot of jamming by the anti-Semites to where they can't take call-ins, for one. Then that's supposed to be allowed. Two, they're supposed to approve it finally in consent after taking public comment this morning. They went pretty smoothly. And it's good to hear that we stopped the divestment campaign, but I understand there's a lot more anti-Semitism going on at the University of Washington. So hopefully soon we'll see some beautiful defunding and possibly special operations, wink, against the university until they stop anti-Semitism. It got so bad today that I decided not to tell the university that pretty soon I'm going to a conference on the campus. This is of disabled people. That's all I feel comfortable saying, because I'm concerned that the anti-Semites might raid that to protest me for standing up for Israel.
Yeah.
That's how crazy this is getting, Ari.
That is how crazy. I mean, I heard a report. I saw a report, actually. We're going to discuss it in the next segment. I saw a report that Columbia started suspending all the people who were suspending, expelling, and revoking degrees from everybody who was involved in taking over the building on campus last year, where they actually held some of the staff hostage in the building, or captive might be a better word, but they kept them in the building. And now it's amazing what will happen when you lose $400 million, isn't it, Joe? Appreciate the call, buddy. Appreciate you being part of the show. Appreciate the update. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Last week, we spoke about out in Kirkland, there's an old hotel that is being converted into a homeless shelter. And the neighbors are pissed because we know what happens every single time they do this. Every time they do this, just ask the owners of the Red Lion in Renton. Every single time they do this, the neighborhood gets destroyed, businesses get broken into, people get hurt, homes get broken into. And when I saw that a friend of ours was actually leading the campaign against this, I got very excited because I knew just who to talk to about this. Joining us now on the Warrior Injury Law studio line, formerly of Lotus Communications in Seattle, Gary Greenberg. Thanks so much for being with us today, my friend.
Hey, Ari, it's a pleasure. You'd be proud of me. In my retirement, I'd become a citizen advocate.
I will say, you hired a certain guy who is a citizen advocate to be a radio show host. So, by the way, the guest we're having right now is one of the people who's responsible for the Ari Hoffman Show, my friends.
You know, I've made some poor decisions in my career.
So why don't you tell us what's happening with this hotel? Because the last time we covered it.
Yeah, thank you. And by the way, there's a large group of us here in Kirkland that are really concerned about this. If I could provide a little bit of background,
sure.
Is this is over in Kirkland. It's off of 520, the old La Quinta. Some of you may know it better as next door to Burgermaster. The county paid $29 million for this in 2022 under the cloak of darkness and secrecy. They're doing some minor building improvements right now, minor to the tune of $10 million. Once it opens, Plymouth Housing, the operator, questionable, that they selected, is going to get $27,000 per room per year, 100 rooms. They're going to get $2.7 million. But riddle me this. If you were to want to place a permanent supporting housing facility that's going to help ensure the safety of all involved and the neighborhood, where would you put it? I mean, if you're the King County Council in Kirkland, you'd put it in a place that shares a fence with a school that has 530 students. You'd put it in a place where there's 3 daycares within a 5-minute walk. You'd put it in a place where there's 0 services anywhere, with the exception of Burgermaster. Oh, and by the way, there's kind of this upscale grab and go down at the end of the block. Plus, you'd put it in a place where there's a lot of office buildings and workers and tenants, some of which are already leaving because of this, and others will certainly follow.
Right. We heard about the big tech company that's getting out of there because of this, right?
Yeah, Inrex. Inrex is leaving. That was big news. There's a daycare that's already left, and we're hearing that there's others that are leaving as well. You know, as a community, we understand the concerns and the need to work on the homeless issue, right? And to help the addicted. But this is one of these places, you know what? I mean, they say there's going to be some criminal background checks, but if you're addicted, it doesn't matter. We're going to open the door and let you in.
Right. And let's go through Plymouth Housing for a minute. So Plymouth Housing, we know, we've covered them extensively on the show. There's a whole barrage, buffet, smorgasbord, if you will, of problems with this organization stemming from the fact that they never seem to actually transition anybody back to life. And then also they were part of the BLM supporters in 2020 of the people who were tearing down the city, which means they're a radical activist group. On top of that, I remember when this hotel got bought, and I remember that King County paid 3 times the amount it was actually worth, which means they just think throwing the money at the problem is the way to go. It's not going to solve anything. And for you residents, it's one thing to say, hey, we want the homeless to be taken care of. We want the drug addicts to get treatment. We want the people with mental health to get taken care of. We want the criminals behind bars. But we've tried this model before, and it keeps failing time after time. Have they given you any security assurances?
Well, you know, they say they're going to work on a code of conduct, right? But you know, they haven't told us what that means. But and they say that if a resident doesn't abide by the code of conduct, they can be evicted. But how's eviction gone these days? Right. Especially when you're dealing with the county.
Right. Now, Gary, what are action items that listeners of the show can do right now? Because right now it seems like this thing's a done deal. They're going forward with it. They don't care what you say. They don't care if they're losing tech companies. Is there something that KVI Nation can do to try and help you guys out?
Well, I think one of the things that KVI Nation can do is to appeal to the Kirkland City Council and the King County Council, because we are in a place right now where this code of conduct is being developed. And at a huge neighborhood meeting that we had earlier in the week. In fact, Como TV was there. You might have seen the coverage. Mm-hmm. And I know Jonathan Cho was there, so that was great. But, you know, what we're trying to do right now is influence what this code of conduct is going to look like in order to protect our community and, you know, the school that's next door and the citizens that live in the area and the businesses in the area.
Yeah, because here's the thing. We've seen how these homeless hotels destroy the area around them and people get hurt. And I'll remind you of this, all my haters out there that are going, Ari just likes to demonize the homeless. It's bad for the homeless, too. You may think it's out of sight, out of mind, but they're going back to those rooms, and Plymouth is known for low barrier, no barrier homelessness and shelter. And what that means is you can bring your drugs with you, you can bring your problems with you. So you go into this place and you just die in a hotel room as opposed to dying on a street. But in addition to that, how many times was law enforcement called to these locations? How many times? Time after time. And I have to double check if it was Plymouth Housing, but let's not forget the day the Seattle City Council decided to start defunding the police was a day one of these social workers who may have been from Plymouth Housing was stabbed to death by one of their homeless clients. And in Renton itself, when they had the Red Lion Inn, the residents there set the building on fire. It had to be evacuated because you're dealing with drug addicts and people who are not in the right state of mind and criminals. And now this is coming to your neighborhood, Gary.
Right. Well, you know, and it's interesting, too. This was a quote from Plymouth Housing earlier this week. No country or government in the world has figured out how to eliminate addiction. But we do firmly believe that by creating community ties, by building trust, we get closer to it.
So not treatment, but building community ties and building trust is going to do it?
Yeah, and the fact that staff will maintain a compassionate approach to help people looking to overcome addiction. And I think that's great. We need to help people overcome addiction, but we're going to still allow them to be addicted and live in the community there.
That's exactly what they're going to do, and that's why these programs fail time after time after time. Gary, so great to hear your voice again. Thanks so much for joining us today, and please keep us informed so we can keep our Kirkland listeners informed of what's coming their way and the surrounding neighborhoods and towns as well.
Absolutely, Ari. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Really do appreciate it. When we come back, my friends, we go to the phones and take your calls and texts, plus the latest insanity from Columbia. Got more stories coming in by the minute from UW and Columbia about this insanity and how we love what Donald Trump's doing. You're going to love it, too. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. And my friends, some of you have been saying, why are I not finding out about some of these events that you guys are having in contests and other stuff? Make sure you sign up to become a KVI insider over at KVI.com right now. That way you don't miss out on any of this. You get our emails, and we don't spam you with tons of stuff or sell your data. So sign up now to become a KVI insider at KVI.com. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Steve in Tacoma. Steve, what's going on?
Hey, Ari, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, buddy. What's up?
Hey, little breaking news from Charlie Kirk. Apparently, old Chucky Schumer caved, and he's going to back the continuing resolution.
Oh, is he now?
I don't know if he got Fetterman or if he's listening to your advice. If he's listening to your advice, you need to stop it.
Well, actually, I have a report in front of me. I just went over to Fox News as you were telling me this to see what was going on. And apparently there was a screaming match earlier today where reporters outside of the caucus room or the luncheon, wherever the Democrats were having lunch together today, heard Kristen Gillibrand screaming at Chuck Schumer. Her office would not confirm whether or not it was her, but that's what people in the know said they heard. So I don't think he's listening to me. I think he's listening to her. I think when you have her and Fetterman calling you out, I think that's when you jump ship, right?
Yeah, for sure. I seen that too on X too. But yeah. So.
Okay, so
if they don't, they're dead in the water.
Exactly. Now the question is, are they going to move forward with negotiating, or are they just going to say, okay, we're going to take the continuing resolution till September? Because Schumer was talking about a continuing resolution just through a month or so it'd be doing this again a month from now. I'm going to dig into this. If you find out what happened, text me, Steve, okay?
All right, I'll do it.
Good deal. Thanks, man. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Speaking of Chuck Schumer, by the way, remember when Chuck Schumer told all the administrators at Columbia, just keep your head down. Keep your head down. Don't worry about all this anti-Semitic stuff and all these Hamas protesters. Just keep your head down. You'll be fine. And then comes in Donald Trump like a freight train, goes, you won't be fine. It's not going to be good. You're the worst. Sad. Pathetic. I'm taking $400 million. So, you remember when all that happened? It looks like Columbia may be starting to learn its lesson. According to the AP, hang on. Where's my little black book of the right-wing media conspiracy? I don't even think I have it around here today. Did I not bring it into work today? But I know the AP is definitely not in there. Columbia University has expelled or suspended some of the students who took over a campus building during, okay, I'm editing this as I go, a pro-Hamas rally riot last spring, and temporarily revoked the diplomas of others who have since graduated. Wow. The university said in a campus-wide email that a judicial board brought a range of sanctions against students who occupied Hamilton Hall last spring to protest the war in Gaza. Uh-oh. Macklemore is going to make a new song. That's his building. That's his cause. He's going to say bleep America and Israel or whatever else it is again. Somebody tell Macklemore. Wait a second. I got a question. It takes this long to do an investigation? Methinks your timing is suspicious. Hang on a second. Mike, what happened between last week and this week? Because we could have done this last week. We could have done this the week before. In fact, let's do some math here for a second. It's been almost a year since this nonsense happened. Almost a year to the day since this stuff was going on. What took so long? You let kids graduate in the meantime. You mean you didn't hold their diplomas after they held your own staff captive? Oh, wait a minute. All it took was Donald Trump coming along and going, you know that federal funding you have? Nope, you don't have it anymore. I'm taking it away. I'm taking your federal funding. We're going to use it for something else. Maybe we'll give it to Israel. Whatever it is, we're just taking it away. This is absolutely crazy. Columbia did not provide a breakdown of how many students were expelled or suspended or had their degrees revoked, but it said outcomes were based on an evaluation of the severity of behaviors. The culmination of the months-long investigation process comes as the university is reeling from the arrest of a well-known Palestinian Okay. All right. No. All right. Here's what they say, and then let's give you the truth for a second. The culmination of the months-long investigative process comes as the university is reeling from the arrest of a well-known Palestinian campus activist, Mahmoud Khalil, by federal immigration authorities last Saturday. Oh, he's just an activist. Okay, can we go through what this peaceful activist did? They took over a building. You said it the paragraph beforehand. They took over a building and they held people captive. They held your janitorial staff captive. And I assume your janitorial staff does not look like me. So apparently, in this case, you guys don't care about the pigmentation of somebody's skin for once. So he took over a building, held people captive. He was the main negotiator between the rioters and the violent Antifa/Gaza encampment you had on campus. That's who this guy was. Oh, on top of that, did we mention that he did this again recently at Barnard and that he was distributing flyers that came from Hamas's media office? This isn't some peaceful protester. This is a guy who has ties to terrorism. This is a guy who's got links to terrorist organizations. But because he keeps sending his pregnant wife out there to advocate for him, oh no, oh the horror, oh it's so sad, it's so sad. Do you know what she said today? NBC published this. U.S. immigration ripped my soul from me. Instead of putting together our nursery and washing baby clothes in anticipation of our first child, I am left wondering when Mahmoud will get a chance to call me from a detention center. First of all, lady, he wasn't helping you assemble cribs. He was taking over buildings and at Columbia University. Let's start there. Considering your husband was calling for violent uprisings, glorifying Yahya Sinwar, the head of Hamas, and terrorists who slaughtered whole families and strangled babies with their bare hands and are still holding American Edan Alexander hostage, and he can't call his loved ones, I don't care what your problems are. I don't care at all. What I am mad about is my friends on the right. I've got some friends on the right who are on the wrong side of this issue. You know what they're saying? They're saying this is a free speech issue. They took over a building. They held people captive. They were distributing propaganda from a terrorist organization. They have ties to terrorist organizations. This is not a free speech thing. The people on the right who are saying that are parroting the far right, which sounds a lot like the far left these days, my friends. When we come back, Doge is driving the Democrats insane. Got some revelations for you from our own Washington Doge about what's going on. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, 2 Cyndi Lauper tickets, plus so much more. Yeah, another reason to always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. So our friends over at Doge Washington, the Twitter account Wake_up_WA, have found something new that you are paying for, my friends. The Democratic-controlled legislature has decided taxpayers are footing the bill for someone's pet grooming in the amount of $10,000. The groomer declined to respond to my inquiry about what it's being spent on. So my question is, do the Inslees have a dog? Because that's a lot of grooming. I mean, it's been 12 years, but that's only a 2-year biennium cycle. So there's that. I do like the person in the comments who wrote, groomer? Are we talking about Chris Rakedahl? Oh, no. That was funny. I didn't used to like those jokes, but given that the guy is dead set on this insanity, yeah, he opened himself up to it now, especially with all his comments. Okay, so $10,000 on dogs. This is the crazy thing, my friends. Do you know the easiest excuse they have for this? The easiest excuse, how they could get out of this in 2 seconds? Look, you and I know it's probably somebody's dog who shouldn't have been paying for this with taxpayer money. But you know what else it could conceivably be? Washington State Patrol has dogs, don't they? Don't they have a K-9 unit? They have to take care of those dogs. Maybe it's that. But the fact that they won't even respond when you ask them shows they're up to no good. Because otherwise, you could just easily say, no, it's the dogs that we're taking care of that go bomb sniffing and drug sniffing and sniff for all the other stuff. That's the easiest out you could say. But the fact that they won't say it only confirms that it could be something else, which is bonkers crazy. Speaking of people who are misusing government funds, according to Fox News, a government accountability nonprofit is calling on the House to launch a probe into whether AOC misappropriated her taxpayer-funded member allowance. Americans for Public Trust, a nonprofit and nonpartisan organization, sent a letter to the Office of Congressional Ethics on Tuesday, questioning several troubling expenses from AOC's disbursements, which they claim are in contravention of federal law and the standards of the House of Representatives. Each member of Congress receives a member representational allowance, otherwise known as an MRA. A budget for official duties may not be used for personal or campaign purposes. However, the squad member is being accused of using these funds for campaign purposes. She allegedly made a payment of $3,700 to a Juan D. Gonzalez and another $850 to Bombazo Dance Company, Inc., with both expenditures described as being used for training. Well, apparently that's a dance instructor and dance lessons, according to this group. The progressive congresswoman has addressed the issue on social media, claiming in a post on X that, in response to a post on X, claiming she was wasting taxpayer dollars. She says, 100% of this is wrong. None of this is taxpayer money. This is an FEC filing. Be loud and wrong about something else. Try again next time. But then why does it say you did this? I'm very confused. It says this is what you spent it on. This is money you're not supposed to be spending it on. This should be from your personal checking account, not in your FEC filing. This should be your personal bank account. This should be your Venmo. This should be your PayPal, not your FEC filing. Filing states that AOC assertion that these expenses are an FEC filing and not reflective of our MRA, as well as her claim that none of this is taxpayer money, is both troubling and obviously incorrect, they say. Either she does not know the difference between her campaign funds and MRA, or more likely she knows the highlighted expenses were not for official business and should have been paid by her campaign and reported to the FEC. Now, mind you, why would you be taking dance lessons for your campaign? I assume it's so that you can run around on stage like a lunatic, like you did when you were campaigning for Jamal Bowman. How'd that work out for you? Oh, right. Jamal Bowman's not in Congress anymore. Oh, so sad. So sad. So, yeah, I think that you probably took some ballroom dancing lessons because, hey, how long has she been dating that white guy for? The pasty white guy she went to Florida with for a while. Because I remember during COVID, you remember we were still in the midst of COVID on the show here and all these pictures came out of her vacationing in Florida with the pasty white guy. And I know she's around all the time dating the pasty white guy. And the only reason I'm saying that is because she claims all white people people are racist. So that's why I'm just emphasizing that one for a second there. And then there was that whole thing about her being pregnant. Wait a minute. Pregnant. Dance lessons. Is AOC planning to get married? Is that what's going on here? I'm not saying she's pregnant, but that's what people keep claiming. And now the dance lessons for the big first dance number, the big white wedding. Oh, no. AOC can't have a white wedding. That would be racist. No white dresses for AOC. That would be racist. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, lots of local crime. It's affecting pot shops. Oh, wait, it's always affecting the pot shops. But we'll tell you the latest insanity of what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 gift card, plus so much more. But before we get to any of that, holy cow, there's a lot of breaking news going on right now, my friends.
Talk Radio 570 KVI. Breaking news on the Ari Hoffman Show.
Well, the weeding continues as Chuck Schumer folds like a cheap suit, and the Democrats are going to vote to go along with the continuing resolution to fund the government through the end of the fiscal year, which means September, so that's another 6 months. Now, what the Republicans want to do is the Republicans want to get together an actual budget. How many years we've been doing the continuing resolution for? I mean, what, since after Obama? Before Obama? I got to go back and check how long it's been since we had an actual budget. I know we had him in Bush's years. I got to go back and double check how long it's going to be.
Obama!
Yeah, him. I got to go back and double check. I think that went out the window during the Obama administration. That's just a guess, but I have to go back and double check. Yes. So, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says, I believe it is my job to make the best choice for the country, to minimize the harms to the American people. Therefore, I will vote to keep the government open and not shut it down. Sure, that's what it is. It's not that you're losing your own caucus, and we heard a whole bunch of yelling coming from inside that Democrat luncheon, and you already lost John Fetterman. And when you lose John Fetterman, who's the only common sense Democrat there seems to be left anymore, you got big problems. When the news media people hear Christine Gillibrand yelling at you through the door, allegedly, when they hear that going on, you got big problems. You lost the battle, Chucky. Well, it looks like Chucky's 0 for 2 today, actually, my friends, because we got more breaking news for you right now.
Talk Radio 570 KVI. Breaking news on the Ari Hoffman Show.
So Columbia University is expelling, suspending, and retracting diplomas from a whole bunch of the Hamasniks. Let's not forget it was Chucky Schumer who told the Columbia administration to keep their head down, everything's going to be fine. And then they lose $400 million in federal funding. Oh, this just gets better and better. So now Columbia is going along with this, and apparently a letter was sent to Columbia. If you want your federal funds back, here's what you have to do. So let's go down the list of what they got here. Enforce existing disciplinary policies. Not outrageous. These are your policies. Just actually enforce them. Meaning the university must complete disciplinary proceedings for Hamilton Hall and encampments. Oh. You see what this is? This is what's going on. They're saying you better do this. So now they're actually doing it, and maybe they get a shot at getting their federal funding back. Primacy of the president in disciplinary matters. They say abolish the university judicial board and centralize all disciplinary processes under the office of the president, and empower the office of the president to suspend or expel students with an appeal process throughout the office of the president. You know what that means? Get all those Hamasniks that are on your discipline board and all those far lefties off it. We're going to hold you, El Presidente, responsible. So your office has to handle this. And if you don't actually take care of business, we're going to take care of you. They got this: time, place, and manner rules. Implement permanent, comprehensive time, place, and manner rules to prevent disruption of teaching, research, and campus life. By the way, that's what Florida's doing. That's what Florida's doing. What Florida said to their universities and their Hamasniks, because they have them too, they said, if you guys want to protest, you can do it over here between these hours so you're not disrupting the other people who are trying to learn. And you know what? They've been doing it. But the reason it hasn't made headlines is nobody's paying attention to you when you don't take over buildings. So they can protest on the grass and the quad all they want, but they're not allowed to obstruct people. They're not allowed to attack students. They're not allowed to spit on people. They're not allowed to say anti-Semitic things. They're not allowed to shut down classes. They're not allowed to disrupt classes. They're not allowed to spray paint university presidents' homes. So they protest there, and nobody really cares. Excellent. Oh, this is my favorite. This is my absolute favorite. A mask ban. Ban masks that are intended to conceal identity or intimidate others, with exceptions for religious and health reasons. Any masked individual must wear their Columbia ID on the outside of their clothing. Oh, this is amazing. This is already the policy at Columbia's Irving Medical Center. Oh, I love this. All the Hamasniks. You can run, but you can't hide anymore. This is great. Deliver a plan to hold all student groups accountable. Recognize student groups and individuals operating as constituent members of or providing support for unrecognized groups engaged in violations of university policy must be held accountable through formal investigations, disciplinary proceedings, and expulsion as appropriate. That means Jewish Voices for Peace, which are neither Jewish nor for peace. Yeah, your time's over, guys. Oh, this gets better and better. Man, I am so happy Donald Trump became president of the United States. Formalize, adopt, and promulgate a definition of anti-Semitism. So you can't say what is or what isn't anti-Semitism. This is great. So that way the Hamasniks don't get to define what anti-Semitism is. They want you to use the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition. Anti-Zionist means discrimination against Jews in areas unrelated to Israel or the Middle East must be addressed. Empower internal law enforcement. The university must ensure that Columbia Security has full law enforcement authority, including arrest and removal of agitators who foster an unsafe or hostile work or study environment, or otherwise interfere with classroom instruction or the functioning of the university. My God, this is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. Wait, what's this here? The MESAAS Department Academic Receivership? Begin the process of placing the Middle East, South Asian, and African Studies Department under academic receivership for a minimum of 5 years. The university must provide a full plan with date certain deliverable by March 20th, 2025. Oh, you know what this means? The faculty in this department are the ones who are encouraging the protests, are the ones who are joining the encampment. So now they're saying to this department, if you don't actually teach about the things you're supposed to be teaching about and keep persecuting other people, we're going to shut you down. This is great. Deliver a plan for comprehensive admissions reform. The plan must include a strategy to reform undergraduate admissions, international recruiting, and graduate admission practices to conform with federal law and policy, which means we're not going to see in any more Hamas terrorist biographies / obituaries, and they went to Columbia, and they went to this Ivy League school. If they are doing this, then, my God, I can't wait for them to get to UW. I am so excited. I'm like a kid on Hanukkah night. We don't do Hanukkah morning. I'm so excited right now. This is great. It says, we expect your immediate compliance with these critical next steps, after which we hope to open a conversation about immediate long-term structural reforms and return Columbia to its original mission of innovative research and academic excellence. So what you're saying is you want to make Columbia University great again? Is that what you're saying? Because that's what it sounds like to me. Oh, this is the best day ever. This is so much fun. I'm enjoying all this. So what's this the culmination of them getting that Hamasnik who they pulled off campus, who's not even a student there anymore, and had him deported because he was here on a green card and he's out there spouting terrorist propaganda. In fact, he's shilling for terrorists, has ties to terrorism, holding people hostage in buildings. So Speaker Johnson was actually very, very clear about this.
Yeah. In your estimation, what crime did Mahmoud Khalil commit to warrant his arrest, detention, and the potential revocation?
Let me tell you something. I went face down the angry mob at Columbia at the height of that stuff. When the pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas protesters were there. I'm telling you, this is my own observation, not something I read in a newspaper. It was dangerous. I met with Jewish students before we went to campus who were holed away off campus because they were instructed by the administration not to come to class, which they paid for fear of their physical safety. The administrators there refused to take control of that campus. They refused to allow the PD to come, the police department to come in and take control, and it turned into a chaos. The president has since been removed, and now they got the same problem again. Columbia and other universities, they have to keep control of campus. The first responsibility of an administration is ensuring the safety of the students who are paying tuition to be there, for crying out loud. This madness has to stop. We have to get control of it. This guy apparently was a mastermind of those very things, when the gnashing of teeth and the ripping of clothes and the people screaming at me, wanting to rip me limb from limb because I was there talking about moral clarity and how there's a right and a wrong. They were doing that. They disrupted the campus. They were threatening physical violence to their fellow students. If you're on a student visa, I'm going to say this clearly. If you are on a student visa and you're in America and you're an aspiring young terrorist who wants to prey upon your Jewish classmates, you're going home. We're going to arrest your tail, and we're going to send you home where you belong. And this is just getting started. So, look, I appreciate free speech. I used to defend it in courts, but this is far beyond the pale of that. When you are threatening your classmates and spewing anti-Semitism and all this hatred, it's enough. And I think the American people understand that. They're supporting it, and I'm glad we have a president who's strong enough to lay down the law. Thanks a lot.
I like that he had to censor himself in the middle of that one. Basically saying we're going to arrest the A word. We're going to arrest that and throw you in jail and kick you out of this country 100%. Wonder what Marco Rubio has to say about this.
When you come to the United States as a visitor, which is what a visa is, which is how this individual entered this country, as on a visitor's visa, okay, you are here as a visitor. We can deny you that visa. We can deny you that if you tell us when you apply, hi, I'm trying to get into the United States on a student visa. I am a big supporter of Hamas, a murderous, barbaric group that kidnaps children, that rapes teenage girls, that takes hostages, that allows them to die in captivity, that returns more bodies than live hostages. If you tell us that you are in favor of a group like this, and if you tell us when you apply for your visa, and by the way, I intend to come to your country as a student, and rile up all kinds of anti-Jewish student, anti-Semitic activities. I intend to shut down your universities. If you told us all these things when you applied for a visa, we would deny your visa. I hope we would. If you actually end up doing that, once you're in this country on such a visa, we will revoke it. And if you end up having a green card, not citizenship, but a green card as a result of that visa while you're here in those activities, we're going to kick you out.
He's 100% right. Coming here is a privilege, not a right. And I'm really tired of seeing all these terrorists that were educated at Harvard, educated at Columbia, educated at Yale. We're basically funding our own destruction. We're educating our own destruction. You would think if those guys go there and get a little taste of money, they would go, you know what, I'd be better off in the private sector. I want to go in the tech sector. I want to create my own company. But no, this is how dedicated they are to terrorism. They get a first-class American education. And what do? They go and join 8th century barbarians in trying to kill the very people who provided them that education. Oh, I guess they're just following some faculty members' orders because that's exactly what they do. Well, while Columbia may be about to wise up, it looks like Harvard isn't. So, the Harvard Kennedy School, Biden's former national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, just got hired there as the inaugural Kissinger Professor of Practice of Statecraft. So wait a minute. The guy who got literally everything wrong for the entire Biden administration, that's the guy you want teaching the next generation on statecraft? Do you remember what this guy said on October 4th, 2023? October 4th, 2023. This is what he said.
And what we said is we want to depressurize, de-escalate, and ultimately integrate the Middle East region. The war in Yemen is in its 19-month of truce. For now, the Iranian attacks against U.S. forces have stopped. Our presence in Iraq is stable. I emphasize for now because all of that can change. And the Middle East region is quieter today than it has been in 2 decades.
Wrong. He said that on October 4th, 2023. How's it going with them Houthi rebels, huh? How's Iran doing? Wow, you guys really called it right on that one, didn't you now? The problem is we have infiltrations at every level of our government. Canada has infiltrations at their level of government. This is the problem. You got to get everybody out. You got to drain the swamp, and you got to stop recruiting terrorists. You got to stop training terrorists. These are 2 Toronto police officers. 2 Toronto police officers bragging about October 7th, bringing them a whole bunch of new reverts to Islam. Now, Islam believes that everybody's born Islam and they just go away from it when they choose whatever religion or no religion. So they don't call them converts. They call them reverts. These are 2 Toronto police officers in full uniform discussing this on the Toronto Police Officers podcast.
It's funny you say this because, through social media, a lot of people after October 7th started learning about Islam.
They did, yeah.
And they said, okay, what is it with the religion that why is it so hated? Yeah. You know what I mean? Why are they being attacked all the time? So people say, you know what, let me learn about Islam. And there have been a lot of reverts through this whole process. I couldn't imagine, like, I guess when you're on social media, most of the feeds come through you. Once you see one, it just keeps coming. But the amount of people that are reverting to Islam is unbelievable, and they're just I guess through education, right? They're actually educating themselves and saying, what is it that Muslims are being targeted? and why are they being targeted? Let me learn about this religion. What are these accusations that they're saying about Islam? And let me learn about it myself and figure out, hey, is it actually true or not?
That's the police department in Toronto, Canada. That's your police department up there, guys. That's scary. Yeah, we got to get all these terrorist supporters out of our country. And Canada can do it at once. I don't want them to be the 51st state. I know everybody likes to joke about that, but we should really stop joking about that. Let's remember, their left is running the country right now. You really want a whole bunch of lefty Canadians as part of this country after we just won? No, thank you. No, thank you very much. By the way, how's it going over at the border? Fox News has a story for us.
Talk a little bit of immigration. So, your mom said if you put your mind to something, you can get it done. Check this out. In the last 50 days, President Trump has arrested 32,809 arrests for illegal immigrants, okay? Under Biden, in the entire year of fiscal 24, 33,242. So in 50 days, they have done almost as much as they did in the entire year. Then you look over here. ICE arrests under Trump. Convicted criminals, 14,000. That's how many. We're just living up amongst us. Pending charges, you have almost 10,000 here. And immigration violations at 8,700.
It's amazing what happens when you just enforce the law. I love Tom Homan's walking down the hallway the other day, and a whole bunch of these lunatic immigration activists are screaming at him while he's just chomping down on an apple. Oh, it was great. It was great to watch. This is what he actually did when he called out Kathy Hochul for allowing New York to become a cesspool as a sanctuary state.
Well, let's talk about the green light law. Let's talk about your governor. Your governor who stayed on national TV after NYPD were assaulted by illegal alien gang members. You had a woman burned alive by illegal alien on a subway. Your governor stands on national TV. I think criminal aliens should be deported. What's one of the first things she do? She goes down to New York City and tries to fire the mayor who wants to help me find public safety threats. Let me give a shout at Mayor Adams. Like him or love him, I called him up for 2 years by not doing enough. As a career cop, he wasn't doing enough. But when I sat down with him back in November, he came to the table. He wanted to help on significant public safety threats. He don't want to be an immigration officer. I don't want to be an immigration officer. But the mere fact he wants to get us into Rikers Island, where people are locked up because they committed a crime, he wanted to get federal immigration authorities back into Rikers Island to talk to illegal aliens who committed a crime against a citizen.
By the way, that's a very important point he just made there. He said Eric Adams doesn't want to do immigration enforcement, and Tom Homan said, I don't want Eric Adams doing immigration enforcement. What he was saying was, I just want to be able to do my job. I just want to be able to do what we got to do. So let's take Washington. Let's take Seattle. You don't have to say, oh, we're not cooperating with ICE. You could say, oh, we don't want to be doing ICE's job. Instead, you could just say, hey, you know what? This guy's getting out on such and such a day. Come pick him up from the jail. Hey, we just arrested this guy. We're not sure of his citizenship. He just drove an SUV off an overpass onto I-5 or just killed a Washington State trooper. Come get this guy. It's that easy. They're not asking you to bust down the doors with them. They're asking you just not to release these guys back to the streets where now they got to go get them. Is it really that hard? It shouldn't be that hard, Seattle. It shouldn't be that hard, Bruce Harrell. It shouldn't be that hard, Dow Constantine. It shouldn't be that hard, Bob Ferguson and Nick Brown. This should be easy. And you know what? Crime will get better. There will be less of it. And then people will think you did it. You get to take all the credit for it off of Donald Trump's and ICE's efforts. Makes sense for you guys to do this, but no, you're too busy catering to your radical base. When we come back, my friends, speaking of their bad policies here, you won't believe what one pot shop right near us has to go through in order to keep criminals out. But before we get to any of that, here's Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast right now on the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, if you want to see this receding hairline and this beautiful face, you can stream us over at Rumble, Facebook, X, and YouTube. Yes, you can see the inside of my lovely studio every single day. Don't forget, you can also stream us over at KVI.com and over on the KVI app. Well, my friends, we have a cast of characters here in Seattle, and now we bring you the story of Seattle's notorious pimp, Winston Burt. Como News has a story for us.
The victim's testimony here was heartbreaking. She said that to this day, she lives in fear of Winston Burt. Prosecutors say he was not just a pimp. He was vicious and violent towards the girls, taunting them, making them fight with each other, and in one case, posting on Instagram asking which gun he should use on a girl who tried to get away.
Just come straight back. Where'd you get?
This was the moment Winston Burt's sex trafficking empire came to an end.
Why you need though? I've explained to you.
Federal prosecutors said Burt moved women from different states, forcing them into sex work on Aurora Avenue in Seattle.
These particular victims were forced to earn $2,000 a night. The defendant would not let them come home until they had earned that amount of money.
Kate Krishman prosecuted Burt's case.
These traffickers are able to recruit victims by portraying their luxurious life on Instagram, on social media. They show their jewelry, they show their cars, they show where they're traveling, and they tell their potential victims this is something that we can have this life together. And then, of course, once they lure them into their web, then they pull the rug out under them.
One victim spoke at Burt's sentencing, recounting the horrors she faced, including when she tried to escape Burt's control and other girls beat her into submission. She fled, running into traffic on Aurora Avenue, where an Uber driver picked her up. Burt started shooting at the Uber, but the Uber driver was armed and shot back. They had a rolling shootout, and the Uber driver got the girl to safety.
I'm just running for my life. And he started opening fire at me.
Mr. Burt used extreme levels of violence to help control and to force the women to do exactly what he wanted.
The FBI says Burt funded a lavish lifestyle off the forced sex work of his victims.
Mr. Burt was driving a Mercedes GLE. He had almost $80,000 worth of jewelry on his person, including an Audemars Piguet diamond-encrusted watch.
Just reporting this flashback?
Yep, let's go.
Burt's defense attorney said in court that he had a terrible upbringing, and that's what led him into a life of bad decisions and crime. The sentence here in federal court, 15 years in prison, followed by 15 years of supervised release. That'll put him into his 60s with this case still attached to him. Today, the prosecutor said that he could have faced up to life in prison, but they felt like this was a good deal, and it spared the victim from having to go through a trial. Reporting live from the federal courthouse in Seattle, Jeremy Harris, Como News.
Wait. This story isn't possible. The Seattle City Council and all the activists in Seattle told me that if we just made pandering legal, if we just let them go wherever they wanted, if we just let the prostitutes, because sex workers are workers too, if we just did that, it'd be so much more easier to regulate. Things would be so much better for the girls. Sex work is work. Human right, whatever. Yeah, how'd that work out for you? Also, you hear that little thing at the end there? Where they said, he had a hard upbringing. I feel so bad for him. So he decided to put women into abject slavery and sell them so he could have $80,000 worth of jewelry on his person. Give me a break. Another failed Seattle City Council policy. And how's Aurora Avenue looking these days, by the way? Is it looking any better? No, of course not. Now King County is talking about cutting more and more and more and more and more. So they're talking about cutting deputies when we have this massive problem. This among many other massive crime problems. Fox 13 has a story for us.
The victim's testimony here was heartbreaking.
Wait a minute, that's the wrong one. Here's Fox 13 with the story for us.
And the King County Prosecutor's Office isn't the only agency possibly facing some tough cuts. The King County Sheriff's Office could lose around $30 million, which they say is equivalent to 80 positions. If the current proposed budget is approved, Sheriff Patty Cole-Tyndall says they will be forced to move almost half of their deputies from unincorporated areas of King County and prioritize the cities and agencies that contract with them and pay for their services. Sheriff Cole-Tyndall spoke in front of a council committee last week. Here's a snippet of what she had to say.
This reduction will significantly increase risk, reduce readiness, reduce response times and coverage, and adversely affect our community and our deputies' safety.
Sheriff Cole Tyndall named specific areas that would lose deputies starting next year if council approves the executive's proposal to cut $30 million, and they include the city of White Center, Skyway, Vashon Island, Redmond Ridge, and Snoqualmie Valley. Deputies will be moved from those areas to places like Shoreline, Woodinville, Sammamish, and Kenmore, as well as agencies like Metro and Sound Transit. Again, they have paid contracts with the sheriff's office, so they will have to rely on revenue generators to make up for the cuts if they happen. Count on continuing coverage on this ongoing issue.
Well, they don't actually have to cut law enforcement. There's plenty of other things they can cut. And actually, King County Councilmember Reagan Dunn is going to be joining us tomorrow on the show. Gave some ideas in a press release he put out today. 1, restoring marijuana tax revenue to law enforcement, because they were originally earmarked for law enforcement, but were divested in 2020, so now they go to other things. 2, reevaluating the Restorative Community Pathway Program. Dunn criticized the ongoing funding of the program, which has been the subject of wide controversy due to the lack of oversight and youth failing to receive the diversion services they're supposed to get. Oh, what do you know? 3, Care and Closure Initiative in King County has not delivered effective alternatives to youth incarceration and has sparked serious concerns about proposals to high-risk youth in unsecured housing across King County. So why don't we cut these failure programs and instead do the programs that work? Yeah. I mean, right around the corner from us, Sean Kemp's Pot Shop, broken into the other day. Now they're installing those giant concrete barricades to stop people from running a car into the front of their shop again. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, one of our Washington State legislators who was in the room last night when the Democrats gut parental rights will tell us exactly what happened, plus how they tried to stop it. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.